Welcome back to some more ReZero. Links in the description if you need them. Last time we cut off right before they got back to the mansion for the first time since the attack, and that is where we are picking up the story. Just in case you need a reminder, this is going to be the light novel and the anime version first, and the web novel version will come after. Otto takes the wagon to the stables, leaving Subaru, Amelia, and Rem at the front door. Come to think of it, I don't remember locking the door when we left. You think we got robbed? Beatrice stayed here, so I don't think we need to worry. Maybe she'll come greet us at the door if we knock. Maybe she'll come flying through it looking for Puck. Ah, that's true. Puck. Puck? Huh. He's not responding. Maybe he's asleep. Another red flag amongst many red flags. This is not in the novels at all. She doesn't try to get his attention. It is getting late, so it's possible that she doesn't think he's going to answer anyway, but I do like that the anime adds in a little bit of foreshadowing here. And the light novel Otto tries to help with Rem and says that he could carry her in if needed, and Subaru flips the fuck out. He doesn't yell or anything, but he uses like a harsh, low voice to basically tell him to back off. And he very much comes off as angry at Otto even suggesting that he was going to touch Rem. Subaru apologizes right after, and Otto lets it go, so nothing big comes from this, but it does show how sensitive Subaru is when it comes to Rem, and it feeds into his feeling insecure about her not being there. They knock on the door. Yes, one moment. A voice that Subaru has never heard. The door opens, and they are greeted by a tall woman in a maid uniform. Welcome home, Amelia. I have been awaiting your return. She raises her head and smiles at them, revealing sharp teeth. Those teeth are scary. Real smooth there, Subaru. The anime skips over it, but Amelia does scold him pretty hard for this little outburst. It's like a mom yelling at her kid. Well, kind of. Like, the anime shows her pulling his ear afterwards, and that's pretty much the extent of what we see. But it's not as much as the novels. And the maid lets the comment go. She says that she is used to people having that reaction when they see her teeth. And I'm not really sure how true that statement is. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Frederica Baumann. I was employed here in the past. Now that you mention it, I was told there is another maid who quit right before I came here. She shows up in a flashback in the anime during the second arc, and her name is thrown out in the novels when Subaru is trying on clothes when he first gets to the mansion. I merely took my leave for personal reasons. Then I returned at Ram's request and found the mansion empty. Fortunately, a letter I found in Master's office gave me an idea as to what had happened. Why did Ram ask you to come back? When I returned, the kitchen and the trees in the garden were all in a desolate state. It was quite awful. It's strange, though. Ram has always worked hard for us while you were away, so why is it just in the past few days? With Rem gone, Ram couldn't handle the mansion herself, so she asked Frederica to help. Would you mind explaining to me who this girl, who bears a striking resemblance to Ram, is? Subaru talks a lot about Rem, and of course, Frederica doesn't remember who she is. In the light novel, this happens while they are taking Rem back to her room. And Subaru also comes to the realization of what happened during the last arc. Subaru sent a letter to the mansion, but when they opened it, the letter was blank, and that caused a lot of confusion. Subaru thought that maybe a spy had intercepted them and replaced the letter or something. And admittedly, so did I, back when I was first reading it. But here, he remembers that Rem was the one who actually wrote the letter, and then they gave it to Crochet to send. So the letter was still sent by Crochet, but the contents that were written down were erased whenever Rem was attacked. This does put the attack happening pretty soon after they split up. So there's no chance that Subaru was ever going to be able to go there or send someone there to help them. Not that it matters. Again, the save point has already been moved. A funny thing that I need to point out. While Subaru is talking about Rem and trying to take care of her, Federica remarks that he is actually pretty kind for someone with eyes of a murderer. She's just making fun of his eyes because he apparently has scary eyes, and it is 100% payback for what he said about her teeth. Another thing that we learn in the light novel is that Roswaal has a lot of servants. In preparation for the royal ceremony, he actually sent most of them away so that they wouldn't be in danger whenever Amelia was made public. And this includes Frederica. So Roswaal did have a lot prepared for with the attack on the mansion, but oddly enough, it didn't have anything to do with the village, and he didn't actually lift a finger when it came to the actual attack. So there's this weird mix of prepared and not prepared. And we'll learn what he's been doing and why he's been doing it later on in this arc. Also in the light novel, the rest of this conversation happens between Subaru and Frederica while they're in Rem's room. In the anime, they're still back in the first room that they went to, and Amelia is still there. Hey, Frederica, have you heard anything from Roswaal? Sadly, I have no way of knowing all that goes on in my master's mind. I believe there are only two people in the world that he trusts enough for that. Ram and the Great Spirit in this mansion's forbidden library. We already knew that Beatrice is a spirit, but this seems to be the first time that Subaru is hearing it, so he is just now starting to make that connection. Subaru walks down the hall, stops, and opens a random door. Hey, Beiko, long time no see. Now I see why the mansion suddenly seemed so noisy. Everyone's been worried about you. You should apologize, even if it has to wait until later. Apologize? Me? I fail to comprehend why I must apologize. And to whom, I suppose. I could go apologize for you if you want. I'll tell them all you were thinking me with tears and snot streaming down your face. Don't make up stories. I haven't shed tears in a very long time, I suppose. It never hurts to have a good wail every once in a while. Those words carry deep meaning, coming from a man who bawled in the lap of the woman he loves. I wanted to include this to show their relationship. I wouldn't say that they're super close, but they do kind of like each other. Like, they like to mess with each other, and most of the time it's not anything too serious. Subaru definitely is the one that starts it most of the time, but Beatrice has no problem firing back. I think it's a sign that they are getting closer. Could you please get to the point, I suppose? How well do you know what Roswaal's thinking? Someone told me that you know how Roswaal thinks. Who said? It must have been that half-beast girl who just came back. There is some accuracy to what she told you, I suppose. But my connection with Roswaal has nothing to do with the current situation. But you stayed here at the mansion by yourself, even with no countermeasures in place. I'm capable of protecting myself. Roswaal has nothing to do with that. That said, I don't believe he had nothing on his mind at all, I suppose. Were you and I and everyone else just giving him too much credit, thinking that he wouldn't go against the witch cult with no plan? So no dice on figuring out Roswaal. I would say that Beatrice probably doesn't actually know what he's thinking, so it's not like she's hiding a whole lot. She may be able to take guesses, but I don't actually think she knows. So Subaru moves on. Oh, that's right. Subaru pulls out Sloth's book. A gospel? Why do you, of all people, have one of those? I took it off the enemy after the battle. It belonged to the guy in charge of the witch cultists who surrounded the mansion. And what became of him? He's dead. I killed him. He did. I did not make that as big of a deal as it is. Subaru actually killed someone. And Subaru very much is the type of person to say, killing is never the answer. But he has been through a lot. So I think by this point, he would probably say that some people need to die. Then you've left me behind too, I suppose. Goose. I've changed my mind on how I think Sloth's name should be pronounced. In the last arc, I went with Beetlegeese because... Okay, look, when I was little, I heard different names for the star. I heard Beetlejuice, I heard Beetlegeese, and in my mind, I wanted to separate out the movie and the actual star, so I went with Beetlegeese for the star. And then when he came into the show, my brain went for the star version, and that's why I picked it, okay? It doesn't matter. I have looked into it a little bit more, and I think that Beetlejuice is the better version to go with. Or Goose is the nickname that she uses here. Who's that? None of your concern. Subaru, of all people, the person who loves to give out nicknames, doesn't recognize Gyus. He spent the entire last arc fighting Beetlejuice, and yet now he acts like shortening a person's name is just a foreign concept to him. Anyway, if you killed Sloth, a Sin Archbishop, then what happened to his witch factor? Witch factor? You don't know? Then why did you bother to kill Sloth? And what is Roswaal? I told you, remember? Roswaal is at the sanctuary. I'm the one that wants to know what he's thinking. All the answers you seek lie in the sanctuary, I suppose. Roswaal's intentions, the meaning of the gospel, they're all there. The half-beast girl can lead you there, I suppose. Why do I have to go to the sanctuary when you... I will not tell you. The library begins to warp as it changes locations. I showed you the path that leads to your answers. Do not expect me to indulge you any further, I suppose. I am not a tool here for your convenience. Subaru is sent flying out the door, sandwiching Otto between him and the wall. Why did you look like you were about to cry again? Excuse me, can you get off? Lots of information here. So Subaru gets a new quest marker, so now he knows where to go. Honestly, this was kind of always the plan anyway. Subaru and Amelia were already talking about going there to figure out what happened to the rest of the Amelia camp and the villagers. So this is just Subaru figuring out who he needs to talk to in order to get there. Beatrice knows a lot about the witch cult and Sloth. Some of this will be explained later in this arc, and a lot more of it won't. But this is still apparently a very emotional topic for her, so don't expect her to say anything anytime soon. The most important thing mentioned is the witch factors. There is a fuck ton about the witch factors, and they are going to be very, very important to the story going forward. But there's not a whole lot mentioned just now, so I think I'll wait on that. In fact, that'll probably have to be a video all on its own. After Subaru gets thrown out, they go back to the main guest room that they were in before. And the anime skips over to the next conversation, but we get a little bit more in the novels. The only real important information is that Amelia is jealous of Subaru being able to go to the Forbidden Library whenever he wants. Frederica has been here for over 10 years, and she has hardly ever even seen Beatrice, let alone just stumbled upon her, the Forbidden Library. And that kind of adds some context to the next line here. So you really are able to enter Beatrice's Forbidden Library? Amelia has told me what a reliable person you are, and she was quite thorough in explaining why, so half of me had high hopes. Frederica? What? What did you tell her? It's not like that. I did tell her about you, but she's exaggerating. No, I heard what you said too. It made me think there must be something more to Subaru than meets the eye. But why wasn't I around to hear all this? Now, Frederica, back to what you were saying. Yes, of course. I asked Frederica to tell me where Sanctuary is. I was no match for Amelia's persistence, even though I have been told not to disclose any more than necessary. Okay, it needs to be said, Amelia did something useful for once. Even though it probably doesn't really mean anything. I mean, Subaru had already figured out that he needed to ask Frederica about Sanctuary, so at best, she just skipped one step. But it's a start. Following that scene, we get some more lovey-dovey stuff in the novels. And that's not just my opinion, that is the actual words used in the novels. But I do agree. Amelia starts to ask Subaru for a favor, and his mind immediately goes to that she's asking him to stay at the mansion. So he starts to try to convince her to take him with her, and she cuts him off and says the following. Of course I'm not leaving you here. Come with me. Subaru, I'm relying on you. I need your strength. I imagine that probably sounds a little more lovey-dovey coming from someone who is an actual voice actor versus when I say it. But you can guess how Subaru reacts to this. He flirts, it goes over Amelia's head, etc., etc. But I would like to ask for a bit of time to prepare. Shall we say 2 days? Prepare? Oh, we'd be leaving the mansion so that... No, I will be staying in the mansion. How are we supposed to get there then? You're rather slow on the uptake, Natsuki. So Otto's gonna get us there. Because he thinks that cooperating with Amelia in any way possible will give Roswell a better impression of him. Otto, is that true? Amelia's pure innocent eyes are killing me. I'm sorry, that's exactly right. The way you wear your ulterior motives on your sleeve makes you all the more likable, Otto. That's not exactly comforting coming from you. According to Frederica in the novels, the sanctuary is surrounded by the Lost Woods, and it sounds exactly the same as the Lost Woods in Zelda. There is a barrier in place that causes people to get lost if they try to approach Sanctuary. It's home to many demi-humans, a sanctuary for demi-humans, if you will. That's not why it's called that. But as you could guess, and as was foreshadowed way back in Arc 1, demi-humans aren't really treated the same as humans. The Witch of Envy is a half-elf, and ever since she went on a rampage a few hundred years ago, there's been issues between demi-humans and humans, and it's eventually led to the demi-human war. Things are slightly better between the two groups now, but I think a lot of demi-humans still prefer to live away from humans. At least that's the impression that I get. On that note, can you tell us about Sanctuary? Very well. What I'm about to tell you is the undisclosed location of the Sanctuary of Clamaldi and how to enter it. There is one name you must not forget as you travel there. Beware of the one by the name of Garfield. He will be the one with whom you must exercise the most care. In the novels, Amelia says that Roswell said that Sanctuary would be necessary for her someday. A little foreshadowing there. We also learn about an event that happened between the second and third arc. And from what I've seen, this doesn't really help with the whole timeline confusion. Lots of stuff happens in that month or two, which is the reason why some people prefer the 2 month time span here, so that there's time for all of that stuff to happen. But at some point, a traveling bard named Liliana visits the mansion. But that's really about all we get right now. Subaru remembers one of her songs about the sword demon, which is Wilhelm, and how badass he was during the demi-human war. But Liliana herself doesn't really isn't a whole lot mentioned right now, but she will be an important character in a later arc. So I can kind of understand why they didn't include her in the anime, because again, there's not much said at this point. Speaking of timeline stuff, let me just go ahead and do this real quick. So from the beginning of the arc, they head back to Roswell's mansion 3 days later. And from there, they wait 2 more days before going to Sanctuary. So we are 5 days into this arc. Subaru checks on Rem one more time before they leave. When he exits the room, he's greeted by the newly hired maid, Petra. If there's anything that you need to remember, it's that the anime hates Subaru having conversations in the same room as Rem. They try to avoid it as much as possible. Once again, he leaves and there's someone pretty much there waiting to talk to him. In the novels, Petra just comes in and talks to him while he's in the room. Did you say goodbye to Rem? Yeah, something like that. We're not planning to stay out there long, but I wanted to see her first. Could you take care of Rem for me while I'm gone? Understood, Subaru. Still, we started advertising to hire a maid 2 days ago, and this is your first day actually being in the mansion. I'm impressed you found the place without getting lost. Exposition. Seriously, though, the mansion is right by the village. How in the world was she going to get lost? But maybe that's just a translation issue for the anime. In the novels, he says, I'm impressed you found me, because she just started there and the mansion is huge. And I think that makes a lot more sense. Like maybe he just meant, I'm impressed you found Rem's room. I don't know. And I really admire your decision to leave your parents at such a young age. I'm 12 years old. I am old enough to be a working grown up. You need to treat me like an adult too, Subaru. Get better at speaking politely and get Frederica to fully initiate you, and I'll think about it. What age do they consider people adults in this universe? I don't think that's ever been brought up, not that I can remember. I mean, Petra just doesn't want to be treated like a child, so I don't think that her example here is enough to go off of. Subaru stops and opens a nearby door. An empty room is all he finds. I forgot what a pain she can be when she's serious about hiding. Is there really a mysterious room here? Yeah, Beatrice. You know her, right? Take care of her for me too. You might randomly encounter her when opening a door somewhere. Subaru acts like Petra has already met Beatrice, and the novels pretty much confirm that they have met. So back in Arc 2, Puck and Beatrice go to the village to help remove curses. That's the only time that I can think of where they would have crossed paths. But the point is that they do know each other at this point in the story. After this, they join up with Emilia, Frederica, and Otto. And the anime skips over Subaru's normal sarcastic comments towards Otto and Subaru petting Patricia. And I do want to bring up one comment that's made in the novel, specifically talking about how much Patricia likes Subaru. I really don't understand why. What, did I save you in a past life or something? So, nothing has been confirmed, but by the very nature of Return by Death, there are some theories that Subaru will eventually go back to the past, like way in the past. The theory that Subaru is Flugel goes along with that idea. Now, I don't think that this is proof that the theory is correct, but I can understand that if you already think that it is, then this comment can be seen as foreshadowing. Foreshadowing Subaru helping Patricia in the past. Yeah. Again, nothing that I have seen has been concrete, and I'm not a huge fan of the theory, but it's still a decent theory, so I'll go ahead and point it out. Take care of the mansion for us. Rem, Petra, and Beatrice, too. You can rely on me. Take care during your travels, Emilia. And take this. This will allow you to get past the barrier in the forest and enter the sanctuary. You have the location and the qualifications. Now you only need the resolve and a strong will. Take good care of the sanctuary, and don't forget what I said earlier. Subaru, would you please accept this? Lending a white handkerchief to a traveler who later returns it stained and worn from the journey is an old custom performed as a prayer for safe travels. Oh, it's one of those things. Thanks, Petra. I promise to return it. She ties it around his right wrist, and the four head out. Petra and Beatrice watch them leave. You'd better protect the lady. I have done exactly as the master directed. Now everything depends on how Emilia overcomes the sanctuary. There's nothing that we can do now but pray. So the only thing I'm going to add here is that there is more to the handkerchief custom. Petra learned this from her mom, who used this to get her now husband. So there's definitely more that's not being said. But Subaru didn't get all the extra context there, and Petra knows that he didn't. She is cool with it just being a reminder of her while he's away. So she is reverse grooming Subaru? Or something like that? Alright, now let's go all the way back to before they go into the mansion. And this is going to be the events according to the web novel. And this isn't going to be super detailed. This is going to be more about the events that happened rather than the actual dialogue or anything. When they get there, Subaru is the only person who goes inside. Everyone else stays out in the carriage. Frederica then sneaks up on him and attacks him and knocks him out. To me, it kind of comes off like he passes out from shock when she just appears behind him. Kind of a precursor to the jokes on her teeth or whatever. But everyone acts like she did actually attack him. So I guess she did? I don't know. Maybe it's just a translation thing. But either way, everyone else runs in when they hear him scream and they clear up the situation. Subaru wakes up in the living room about an hour later. Emilia and Frederica come in to explain the situation, and we get this little fun exchange. That would be what Emilia had firmly insisted, ardently enough that it seemed I might blush merely in listening, devoted to Subaru lines upon lines of evocative rhetoric. Frederica? Emilia appears to lack in charm as always. And then your usual pattern of blushing and becoming flustered, regardless of the veracity of my statements, is so beautiful. Is it? But you won't fool me today. I've learned from being fooled over and over. Frederica, you cross your eyes when you lie. That I surely would not have considered. Incidentally, Amelia, would you have noticed that your ears grow longer when you tell lies? No way. Amelia frantically grabs her own ears, inadvertently surrendering this match to Frederica. That doesn't really add anything to the story. I just thought it was cute. They talk a bit more, and it's a lot of the same stuff that happens in the anime and the light novel. And we do learn that Frederica got to the mansion right after they left, like probably the same day. Subaru says that he has been here for about a month, so she's probably been gone for 3 months. At this point, I'm starting to think that the 2 months mentioned earlier for the timeline between the second and third arc was just a fuck up, either by Tope or by someone translating. But does it matter? All that matters is that my interpretation of the timeline is the correct one. Also, during this conversation, Subaru decides to bring up sex stuff. Remember, back in Arc 2 in the web novel, Subaru thought that Roswaal was having sex with the maids, or something along those lines. So he decides to bring that back up now. Frederica just asks, did Roswaal say something when he hired you? And that's the end of the conversation. And to me, it comes off like she's asking, did Roswaal ask you to do something? Or maybe that's just my imagination on that. Otto comes in after putting Patricia in the stables, and he offers to get Rem and take her to her room, which causes Subaru to yell at him like he does in the light novel. This is also where he realizes what happened with the letter, and he starts to bang his head on the wall in frustration for his own stupidity. I think this is something that happens more in the web novel than the other versions, but he tends to hurt himself whenever he feels like he has failed. So he thinks that he should have caught the clue about the blank letter, so he punishes himself for not catching it. Once they're done talking, Subaru goes off to talk to Beatrice, and this conversation is very different than what it is in the other versions. Before that, so I didn't have the web novel translations for the last arc, but the Witch Cult site does have a list of the differences between the different versions that I should have checked beforehand. That's my bad. One of those differences was a comment that Beatrice made to Subaru while he was trying to convince her to leave the mansion before the attack. She mentions Rem, but this would have been after her name was eaten. So Subaru goes to the Forbidden Library, and the beginning of the conversation is the same as the other versions. It's pretty lighthearted. But instead of asking about Roswaal, he asks about Rem. And Beatrice just straight up refuses to answer anything about that. She does conclude that he is really asking about Gluttony's authority and says that Roswaal, Puck, and Shaula would also know about that, but she is not going to give out any answers. We knew that Puck was going to be on that list. We don't really know a whole lot about Shaula just yet, but Roswaal being on this list is a little surprising. And with his name being brought up, this is when Subaru starts to ask about Roswaal and the gospel and all the stuff that he brought up during the light novel and the anime. And once again, Beatrice really isn't going to give out a whole lot of information. After they talk about the witch factor, Beatrice actually throws the gospel back at Subaru. It's proper that you be the one to hold on to this, I suppose. Will the witch factor choose or not? Either way, the selection is closing in fact. If this helps you make your judgment, then I'm sure Gyus will rest in peace, I suppose. First, what the fuck? Beatrice knows a lot about the witch cult, which we already knew that from the other versions. But this comes off less like she knows about the group and more like she is a part of the group. Second, the witch factor choosing is something that makes sense, but I don't think it's ever brought up at any point. At least not that I can remember. It's definitely going to be something that I'm going to keep an eye on and see if we find anything else out going forward. So it may be important going forward. I'm not sure yet. He gets kicked out of the library, and then he goes back to the living room with Amelia and Otto. Frederica comes in after getting Rem's room ready. Otto runs off back to the village to go help them, and Subaru goes with Frederica to get Rem out of the carriage. Subaru pets Patricia and thanks her for all of her hard work, and then picks up Rem. Now, they told Frederica that Rem and Ram were sisters, but this is the first time Frederica is seeing her. Now, luckily, they look the exact same, so Frederica believes that they are sisters, even though she doesn't remember who she is. On the way back to the room, Subaru tries to figure out how long Beatrice has been there. At this point in the web novel, he still thinks that she's just a normal girl. Well, an extremely powerful 12-year-old magic user, to be exact. This is where he learns that Beatrice is a spirit, and tries to get more information, but Frederica stops the conversation there. And it starts to actually get to Subaru. The more that he talks to people, the more they seem to hide stuff from him. They get to the room and Amelia is waiting for them. So Subaru puts Rem to bed and talks to Amelia for a bit. Puck isn't answering, which comes up again later. I'm going to wait and talk about that then. They don't know what to do in this situation, so this is where they decide that they need to go to Sanctuary. Amelia says, "I need you, come with me," or, something like that. Frederica comes back in and gives them information on Sanctuary. And Otto is not mentioned at all. Frederica wants 2 days so that she can tell Patricia how to get there, which makes more sense to me, actually. She doesn't want to tell some random ass merchant how to get to the secret location. During the 2-day break, Subaru puts Otto to work. He's basically like a secretary. He has him sorting documents that honestly should probably be for Roswell's eyes only. Subaru very much does this on purpose to try to force Otto into staying and helping Amelia. If he sees too much, then Roswell won't let him leave. Otto does catch on to this fact, but it's much too late. Subaru does give his reasons for wanting Otto on their side. That you're factionless, devoted to no one in the royal selection. That you're sharp with weighing profits and losses, and your views on winning over allies through business negotiations are easy to understand. And most importantly, that you don't look at Amelia, a half-elf, with a discriminatory view, I guess. He is being 100% serious here, and it does help to smooth things over with Otto. Otto then goes on to tell his dream of owning a shop. It's a nice little scene here that is immediately ruined by Petra walking around the corner and making it obvious that this was all set up. And so Team Amelia is growing. We have a little girl who is there more for Subaru than Amelia, and a merchant who is more concerned with his own financial situation than anything else. So yeah, they're doing great. The web novel then skips on Subaru checking on Rem, which means the conversation with Petra didn't happen either. I mean, some of it was rolled in with the last scene, but nothing about checking in on Rem or Beatrice. On the day they leave, everything plays out pretty similar to the other versions. Otto goes with them because he doesn't trust Subaru to give Roswell a good first impression of him. Petra gives him the handkerchief, and it has some embroidery on it. So Subaru goes to the village every morning to do radio calisthenics with the villagers, and he made stamps out of potatoes. So the kids have a little stamp book, and they get fun stamps whenever they participate. One of those stamps is a little chibi puck, and that's what's been embroidered on this handkerchief. One big difference is that Frederica never gives the crystal to Amelia. And this crystal comes up a lot later on in the arc. So we'll see how much of a difference this plays going forward. And now we are caught up with the story. One last thing. So throughout the entire story, Subaru likes to throw in English words that nobody knows because they don't know English. And he did that a lot throughout this section. Yes or no type A versus type B personalities. It's not important enough to point out every single time that it happens, but it does happen a lot. So I want to put in a little reminder of that here. Okay, the group is now off to Sanctuary, and in the next video, we will see what has been going on. See ya!